democracy. Imagine a system where power flows like water from the bottom up, not top down. That's democracy, the revolutionary idea that ordinary people should have a say in the decisions that affect their lives. At its heart, democracy is built on a profound respect for human dignity and the belief that wisdom can emerge from collective decision-making. Think of democracy as a three-legged stool. The first leg is elections, regular chances for people to choose their leaders and kick out the ones who aren't serving them well. This creates a powerful accountability loop. Leaders must stay connected to people's needs or lose their positions. The second leg is rights and freedoms: free speech, free press, freedom to assemble and protest. These aren't just nice extras, they're the tools citizens need to make informed decisions and keep power in check. The third leg, often overlooked but crucial, is minority protection. Pure majority rule could turn into mob rule, so democracy includes constitutional protections for minority rights. This creates a delicate balance between majority will and minority rights, between quick action and careful deliberation. Modern democracy comes in several flavors. Direct democracy, like ancient Athens or modern Swiss referendums, lets people vote directly on laws. Representative democracy, more common today, has people elect representatives to make decisions for them. Constitutional democracy adds a framework of rules that even the majority can't easily change, protecting fundamental rights. Democracy isn't just a political system, it's a way of solving problems through discussion rather than force, through persuasion rather than coercion. It assumes everyone deserves a voice, and that better decisions emerge when we listen to many perspectives. While not perfect, it's proven remarkably adaptable and resilient, capable of peacefully transferring power and correcting its own mistakes. Socialism. Socialism emerged as a bold answer to a fundamental question: why should the wealth created by many be controlled by few? It envisions an economy where workers aren't just cogs in someone else's machine, but active participants in economic decisions affecting their lives. At its core, socialism challenges the deep divide between those who own the means of production: factories, resources, major companies, and those who work in them. Instead of private ownership concentrated in few hands, it proposes collective ownership either by worker cooperatives, communities, or the state acting on behalf of the people. This isn't just about redistributing wealth, it's about redistributing power over economic decisions. Think of it like transforming a company from a dictatorship where owners make all decisions into a democracy where workers have a real say. This extends beyond individual workplaces to the broader economy. Socialism seeks to replace the chaos and inequalities of market competition with planned cooperation, ensuring basic needs are met before luxury wants. Modern socialist thinking spans a spectrum. Market socialism keeps markets but puts worker-owned cooperatives in competition instead of private corporations. More traditional models involve central planning to coordinate production and distribution. What unites all versions is the belief that the economy should serve human needs rather than private profits. Socialism isn't just about economics, it's about reimagining human relationships. It argues that cooperation, not competition, brings out the best in people. It envisions a society where everyone's basic needs are met as a right, freeing people to develop their full potential. While historical attempts at socialism have had mixed results, its critique of capitalism's inequalities and its vision of economic democracy continue to inspire new generations.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Communism. Communism represents one of history's most ambitious attempts to reimagine human society. It's not just about changing who owns what, it's about fundamentally transforming how humans relate to work, to property, and to each other. The communist vision starts with a radical premise: private property, particularly of productive resources, creates artificial divisions among people and is the root of social inequality. It proposes eliminating private ownership of production means entirely. Instead of working for wages in someone else's business, people would contribute according to their abilities and receive according to their needs. This isn't just economic theory, it's a complete social philosophy. Communism sees human history as a series of class struggles, with different groups fighting over resources and power. It predicts these struggles will end only when class divisions themselves disappear through common ownership and planned production for use rather than profit. The gap between theory and historical practice has been stark. While theoretical communism envisions a stateless society of equals, actual communist states became centralized, bureaucratic, and often authoritarian. This raises profound questions about human nature and social organization. Can we create genuine equality without coercion? Can complex economies function without market signals? Yet communism's core insights about economic power shaping social relationships remain relevant. Its critique of capitalism's tendencies toward inequality and crisis still resonates. Even its failures reveal important lessons about the challenges of radical social transformation. Modern discussions of communism often distinguish between its theoretical ideals and historical implementations. While few now advocate Soviet-style state communism, ideas about common ownership, economic democracy, and production for human needs rather than profit continue to influence political thought. Capitalism. Capitalism isn't just an economic system, it's a revolutionary force that transformed human society by unleashing unprecedented productive power through individual initiative and market competition. It's built on a simple but profound idea: when people pursue their own interests in free markets, their collective actions can create wealth and progress for all. At its heart are three interconnected principles. First is private property rights, the idea that individuals can own and control resources, including the means of production. Second is market exchange prices. Profits and losses serve as signals guiding what to produce and how to produce it. Third is competition. Businesses must compete for customers, driving innovation and efficiency. This system creates a remarkable paradox: individual self-interest, properly channeled through markets, can serve the common good better than direct attempts to plan for it. When a business succeeds, it's usually because it's providing something people want at a price they're willing to pay. This invisible hand of the market coordinates millions of individual decisions without central direction. However, capitalism's dynamism comes with costs. Its creative destruction, where new industries replace old ones, creates both winners and losers. Its focus on financial returns can ignore social and environmental impacts. Market competition tends toward monopoly unless regulated, and wealth tends to concentrate unless redistributed. Modern capitalism comes in many varieties, from American-style free markets to European social market economies to East Asian state-guided capitalism. Each tries differently to balance capitalism's productive power with other social goals. The system's adaptability, its ability to incorporate criticism and reform while maintaining its core dynamics, helps explain its durability. Fascism. Fascism emerged in the early 20th century as a radical rejection of both liberal democracy and socialist internationalism. It's not just another form of authoritarianism, it's a specific political philosophy that combines extreme nationalism, totalitarian control, and the myth of national rebirth through conflict. At its core, fascism sees society as an organic whole, like a body. Just as a body needs a brain to direct it, society needs absolute leadership, typically a charismatic dictator. Individual rights mean nothing, only the nation matters. This leads to total state control over society, merging political, economic, and cultural life into one coordinated system. What makes fascism unique is its glorification of conflict and violence. While other ideologies typically promise peace and prosperity, fascism celebrates struggle. It claims that conflict between nations and races is natural and necessary for national renewal. This isn't just about military power, it's about transforming human nature through constant mobilization and combat. Fascism thrives on enemies, both external and internal. It needs constant threats to maintain its urgency and justify its control. Historically, this led to aggressive expansionism abroad and brutal suppression of minorities at home. The fascist state demands not just obedience but enthusiasm, turning politics into a kind of dark civic religion. Modern scholars see fascism as more than just dictatorship, it's a revolutionary movement aimed at creating a new man and a new society through violence and struggle. While classical fascism was defeated in World War II, its appeal to national pride, social order, and authoritarian solutions to complex problems continues to influence extreme right-wing movements today. Liberalism. Liberalism stands as one of the most successful and adaptable political philosophies in history. It's built around a revolutionary idea: individual human beings have fundamental rights that no government or majority can legitimately violate. This simple principle has profound implications for how society should be organized. At its heart, liberalism is about freedom, but not just any kind of freedom. It emphasizes ordered liberty, freedom protected by law, balanced by responsibility, and limited by others' equal rights. This requires a careful balance of institutions: constitutional government, independent courts, free markets, and civil society organizations. Liberal thinking revolutionized how we view the relationship between individual and state. Instead of subjects serving a ruler's will, liberals see government as existing to protect individual rights. Power flows from the people up, not from authority down. But this isn't just about limiting government, it's about creating conditions where individuals can develop their full potential. The liberal vision extends beyond politics to economics and society. Free markets, protected property rights, and voluntary exchange are seen as both morally right, respecting individual choice, and practically effective, creating prosperity. Open debate and competition of ideas are viewed as the best way to discover truth and solve problems. Modern liberalism has evolved into several branches. Classical liberals emphasize economic freedom and limited government. Social liberals support more government action to ensure equal opportunity and basic welfare. What unites them is belief in individual rights, rule of law, and the power of voluntary cooperation over coercion. Conservatism. Conservatism isn't just resistance to change, it's a sophisticated philosophy about how societies best evolve and improve. At its heart is a profound respect for accumulated wisdom, the idea that social institutions and traditions that have evolved over generations contain deep insights that may not be immediately obvious. Think of society as a complex ecosystem rather than a machine. Just as ecosystems can be damaged by sudden changes, conservatives argue that rapid social changes often have unintended consequences. They advocate for gradual, organic change that preserves what works while carefully reforming what doesn't. This isn't blind opposition to progress, it's skepticism about radical solutions to complex problems. Conservatives emphasize several key principles. First is the importance of social order and moral values, seeing them as essential foundations for freedom and prosperity. Second is respect for traditional institutions like family, religion, and local communities, viewing them as crucial buffers between individual and state. Third is support for free markets and property rights, seen as proven engines of prosperity and bulwarks against government overreach. What makes conservatism unique is its humility about human nature and social planning. While progressives often believe society can be rationally redesigned, conservatives point to human imperfection and the limits of reason. They argue that social institutions embody collective wisdom that may not be fully understood, but shouldn't be carelessly discarded. Modern conservatism varies significantly by cultural context. American conservatives emphasize individual liberty and free markets, while European conservatives might focus more on social stability and welfare. What unites them is belief in preserving tested institutions while accepting necessary but careful change. Anarchism. Anarchism pushes a radical question to its logical conclusion: if human beings are capable of reason and morality, why do we need rulers at all? It's not chaos that anarchists seek, but rather a profound reorganization of society based on voluntary cooperation rather than coercion. The anarchist critique goes deeper than just opposing government. It challenges all forms of hierarchical power, seeing them as inherently corrupting and unnecessary. Instead of top-down authority, anarchists envision networks of voluntary associations where people coordinate their activities through mutual agreement and free federation. This vision requires rethinking many aspects of society. Instead of police and prisons, anarchists propose community-based conflict resolution. Rather than corporate hierarchies, they advocate worker self-management. Instead of national borders and armies, they envision free movement and peaceful cooperation among communities. Anarchist thought comes in several varieties. Anarcho-communists want common ownership of resources and production based on need. Anarcho-syndicalists focus on revolutionary labor unions as tools for social transformation. Individualist anarchists emphasize personal autonomy and voluntary exchange. What unites them is opposition to coercive authority and belief in human capacity for self-organization. The practical challenge for anarchism has always been how to get from here to there, how to transform a society based on authority into one based on voluntary cooperation. While pure anarchism remains largely theoretical, its insights about power, hierarchy, and human potential continue to influence social movements and political thought. Social democracy. Social democracy represents a practical compromise between capitalism's productive power and socialism's egalitarian goals. It accepts market economics but insists markets must serve human needs and be democratically regulated for the common good. The core insight of social democracy is that political democracy is incomplete without economic democracy. It's not enough to have equal voting rights if extreme economic inequality distorts political power. This leads to support for strong labor unions, progressive taxation, and universal public services like healthcare and education. Think of it as attempting to civilize capitalism rather than replace it. Social democrats believe market forces are useful tools but poor masters. They support private enterprise but embed it within a strong regulatory framework and social safety net. The goal is to combine economic dynamism with social justice. The Nordic countries often exemplify social democratic principles in practice. Their flexicurity model combines flexible labor markets with strong social protection. High taxes support extensive public services, while strong unions ensure workers share in economic gains. The result is both high productivity and relatively low inequality. Modern social democracy faces several challenges. Globalization makes it harder for individual countries to regulate capital or maintain generous welfare states. Rising inequality and climate change raise questions about whether modest reform is sufficient. Yet its practical success in combining prosperity with social justice keeps it relevant. Nationalism. Nationalism is more than just love of country. It's a powerful political idea that shapes how people understand their identity and interests. It argues that humanity naturally divides into distinct nations, and each nation should control its own destiny through sovereign statehood. What makes nationalism unique is how it combines political and cultural identity. A nation isn't just a territory or state, it's a people sharing common heritage, language, and destiny. This emotional power explains nationalism's ability to inspire both great achievements and terrible atrocities. Nationalist thinking comes in different forms. Civic nationalism focuses on shared citizenship and political values, welcoming anyone who embraces the national culture. Ethnic nationalism defines nationality through ancestry and birth, often leading to exclusion and conflict. Both types share belief in national sovereignty and self-determination. The relationship between nationalism and democracy is complex. Nationalism helped create modern democratic states by arguing that legitimate authority comes from the people, yet nationalist emphasis on unity can also threaten democracy by pressuring minorities and limiting individual rights. Modern nationalism faces new challenges. Globalization weakens national borders, while minority rights and multiculturalism challenge nationalist unity. Yet nationalism's appeal persists, offering identity and meaning in an increasingly interconnected world. Environmentalism. Environmentalism represents a fundamental shift in how humans view their relationship with nature. Rather than seeing nature as simply a resource to exploit, it recognizes humans as part of an interconnected ecological system that must be preserved for our own survival. At its core, environmentalism challenges the assumption of endless growth on a finite planet. It points out that human economic activity is pushing against planetary boundaries in ways that threaten both natural systems and human civilization. This isn't just about protecting wilderness, it's about reimagining human development to work within ecological limits. Modern environmentalism spans a spectrum of approaches. Reformist environmentalists work within existing systems to reduce pollution and protect natural areas. Deep ecologists call for more fundamental changes in human society and values. But environmental justice advocates connect ecological issues with social justice, pointing out that environmental damage often hits disadvantaged communities hardest. The movement has evolved from focusing on specific issues like pollution and endangered species to addressing systemic challenges like climate change and biodiversity loss. This has led to broader questions about economic systems, technology, and human values. Can capitalism be ecological? How can technology serve environmental goals? What would a sustainable civilization look like? Despite significant opposition from vested interests, environmental concerns have become mainstream. Most governments and corporations now acknowledge environmental challenges, though action often lags behind rhetoric. The movement's success in changing how people think about nature may be its most lasting achievement. Libertarianism. Libertarianism takes individual liberty to its logical conclusion, arguing that freedom should be the default in all human affairs. It sees government coercion, not just tyranny, as the main threat to human flourishing. The core libertarian principle is the non-aggression axiom: no one has the right to initiate force against others or their property. This leads to support for extremely limited government, basically just courts and defense, with all other services provided through voluntary market exchange. Think of it as taking free market principles beyond economics. Libertarians believe voluntary cooperation works better than coercion, not just for producing goods but for solving social problems. They argue that government intervention, however well intended, usually makes things worse through unintended consequences. Modern libertarianism comes in various forms. Right libertarians emphasize property rights and free markets. Left libertarians combine personal freedom with criticism of corporate power and support for worker cooperation. What unites them is opposition to state coercion and belief in voluntary solutions. While pure libertarianism remains largely theoretical, its emphasis on individual rights and skepticism of government power influences broader political debate. Its insights about unintended consequences and the value of voluntary solutions remain relevant to policy discussions.